Hey everybody, it's Andrew Ross from Indie Garage. I'm here once again with Murray Voth for Indie Garage live session. As we're coming through this COVID-19 period, some of the economies through the provinces are starting to open up different sectors. Of course, the aftermarket has been open to varying degrees across the country, but as we went into this, the Automotive Industries Association of Canada embarked on a survey project intended to see what the impact was as we went through this. Now they've just come out with the results on that, and so Murray and I are going to talk about that. Of course, Murray Voth here from RPM Training and a contributor to Indie Garage. Now, Murray, you've had a chance to look at some of the results from the AIA survey, and what's your initial impression?
Well, the results are quite mixed because of the different segments of the industry that they surveyed. I probably took more from the comments that they had recorded from people than I did from the actual numbers, right? Those comments are very personal about some of the pain that the industry is going through, some of the things that are positive that are happening, right? But again, with the collision side being so heavily weighted in there, they're the ones that are hurting the most, honestly. I have two collision clients in my mix of people that I work with that combine collision and mechanical, and yeah, they're down, way down. And when cars do come in, because people are driving, the roads are so much emptier, they're driving so fast, there's way more write-offs.
Sure, which really doesn't help the shots. Just for folks who haven't had an opportunity to review the AIA survey, some 363 respondents participated in the survey, and 183 of those were from the collision repair sector. The remaining virtually half of the survey were mixed between warehouse distributors, wholesalers, manufacturers, and mechanical repair shops. I'm going to see if I can't show some folks here what the results look like very briefly. For example, this is the general breakdown amongst the participants in the shop survey. See if I can't get this into a full screen. There we go. And some 61% declared that their businesses were very disrupted. 33% slightly disrupted, functional normally 4%, which is a bit of a surprise, and completely shut down 2%. I think these numbers are not a big surprise to anybody who's been kind of watching. It really was a very sharp shock to the system. Legislated closures for a lot of businesses that the aftermarket relied on. The employees and the citizenry, the driving public. So it's bound to have had a significant impact. This is an interesting, to me anyway, graph, and it sees a sort of ramping up of the impacts. But as we look forward even deeper into May, the expectation is that those impacts are already starting to subside. Whereas in April, more than 50% of the respondents declared that 50% of their revenues were gone. By the time we get to May, that's dropped to about 40. I think it's about 30%, 40% of the, and we're starting to see that just kind of already on the backside of that curve, as it were. Now, you mentioned to me before we came on air, in the context of the kind of overrepresentation of the collision repair segment in that survey, that you had also been monitoring your clients and done some specifically targeted surveys. So tell me a little bit what those findings look like.
Sure, I measure about 50 shops currently on a monthly basis, and we focus on sales, key performance indicators, net profits, the whole bit. And I thought I would do some research prior to our meeting on net profit. And I usually look at percentage because if to compare apples to apples from one shop to the other, percentage makes sense. But I thought that would be invalid because there's been so many changes, staffing changes, owners, people leaving, owners having to step in and filling in a role. So I thought, why don't we look at net profit dollars? Because really, at the end of the day, that's what we get up in the morning.
Right. So the net profit dollars is, you decided.
Is the number that I'm going to share with you. So if I just have a quick look at my notes here, in March, my clients were 25% on average. Now, this is very regional. Alberta was still struggling to some degree, although they were coming back out, right? So March was up 25% over last year, but they were down 5% over their year to date. So we know that the tail end of March.
Where's is that net profit dollars?
Net profit dollars, yeah.
Dollars. So profit actually was very strong, looking very strong.
In March over last year, yes.
Right.
So the industry, the aftermarket was really coming out strong before the pandemic hit. And I'm going to actually talk about some of the opportunities in a minute if we've got that time here. And then now in April, they're down 5% over last year in net profit. So that's obvious, right? There was a lot of uncertainty, closures, things like that. But they're up over their year to date. So that dip in March, they're now climbing back out of it in terms of net. Now that net dollars, let's be realistic. Like I said, about 75% of them are down at least 25% of their staffing. Right. So they've got a technician who's stayed home, or an advisor that stayed home to protect their family. They're not comfortable coming to work. There's been, believe it or not, shops are realizing that they were overstaffed. They were getting too comfortable with all the people.
That's
right?
a very interesting kind of takeaway.
And then the other thing I was going to say was the owners are spending more time in the business rather than on it. They're very grateful for what's happened, but they're now either teching again or advising again, maybe almost even full time, whereas before they were just business managers in the background. Right.
Right. So I'm sorry, but very grateful to have just the opportunity to keep the business open is what you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. To have the opportunity to still go in and still, continue with an operating business. Even if it does mean they're, spending a lot more time working in the business rather than on the business that had been, their prior situation, and what is really the goal that we always talk about with business ownership, right? So unusual.
If I could just speak to some of the things that are happening, what the positive things are that are happening to them for a sec, Andrew.
Yeah, sure.
The shops that have gone to a digital platform prior to the pandemic are the ones that are doing the best, because they're already almost in that digital world where they can be almost purely contactless, right? Pick up, deliver, digital, everything's digital, payments digital, right?
Right.
I would say leading edge of what's really helping a lot of them. But the other thing is a lot of them are getting new customers. The phones are ringing more than ever before. And what's happened is people are finding out about, oh, you do contactless, or you do digital.
Right.
My guy doesn't do that. Can I come to you, right? And even though there is good news in the sector that I'm working with here, there's still lots of bad news for lots of shops out there. Really unfortunate. If a shop was surviving break job to break job prior to the pandemic, those are the ones that are not surviving and may not survive. And so those customers are now looking for a place to go to. So, there's always good news, bad news when these situations are there, but it's a proof of concept, right? Good practices, good systems, procedures, good management skills, leading edge technology, and you can actually thrive in times of horrible things happening to us.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned, about digital processes. I know that in, the current issue forthcoming to readers now, we talk quite a bit about digital vehicle inspection. And, again, as you say, for those shops that already had it in place, it's a very easy transition into positioning that as something, as a benefit from a contactless transaction standpoint, where they might have done it simply to build confidence of their customer base in their estimations and in the work they're recommending. But all of these processes and procedures and tools to help build confidence with the customer in an increasingly digital world are really starting to pay dividends. It sounds like that's what's going on out there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, from an outlook standpoint, the results from the AIA survey were also a bit mixed. I think 42% of the respondents said, they were looking at things improving through the 30 days following the end of the survey, which was just May 8th, so just about a week ago now. And 30% saying they might get worse. There was also a significant number, I think it was 12% or so, saying it was really uncertain and they didn't know. So what are you hearing? How does that jibe with what you're hearing from the shops that you're talking to most often?
So if I talk to the shops that I work with, they've taken training, I would call them more leading edge shops. They would line up with, that 40, 50% of it's going to get better, 30%, uncertain, whatever. If I look at the industry, talk to some of the suppliers, the wholesale distributors and what they're losing or gaining, that segment of the broader segment is not quite as confident coming back.
Right.
My opinion, my observation is I think that it's going to be solid for the aftermarket, the ones that maintain their businesses and keep going. I think there's going to be some peaks and valleys while the consumer sorts out a few things in their lives. Anecdotally, there's now stories of lots of lease returns.
Right.
Car people walking in and saying, I don't need this car anymore on this lease, or I don't want this car anymore, walking away from leases. Shop owners having people say, hey, do you have a good, reliable car that you're selling? I'm looking. And so the phrase that a fellow used was, all these people who are making lazy, bad financial decisions because of easy credit and cheap interest, replacing their cars every 5 years, have woken up to the fact that that was not the wisest thing. It was easy because money was easy.
Right.
Now that things are tightened up, they understand the value of an older car. They understand the cost of depreciation. They've just ignored it for the last 10 years. So some of my clients and other shops that I've talked to said there's people bringing older cars in that they want to get back up to snuff again because they're going to use those. And that's fantastic news for the aftermarket, right? I think that's really great news that way.
That's great.
But that'll hurt the new car dealers on their terms of car sales, which will then affect the economy. So there's going to be some cycles of ups and downs while we sort out, where the jobs will land and things that will happen. I was at Home Hardware in Penticton, BC yesterday, looking for a bamboo blind. It's been weeks I've been asking for this, and they say they have a truck waiting that's a week and a half behind because their sales have doubled over last year. Right. So there's pockets of this country that are going insane, business-wise, economics, during the pandemic. So I think what we need to do is look for those bright spots and adapt, to those bright spots, and I think we're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of indicators. I memean, notwithstanding, the current uncertainties for a lot of shops and a lot of, just the citizenry at large. There's a lot of metrics working in the aftermarket's favor. I think we're starting to see a recognition of that. Cars that have maybe been sitting for or almost for without moving at all for a couple of months in some cases. A lot of the driving public is starting to realize the hard way that when they go out to start it and they now are being called back to work, it won't go because you can't leave a car anymore for 2 months. So dead batteries. Creatures living in those cars now. This is the reality, you sit a car outside in a lot of places in this country and, squirrels are going to chew away at it. They're going to take up residence. So obviously be careful when you start that car that's been sitting for a while, maybe, but, for shops, they're going to have some really troubling diagnostic situations when a car looks fine and for whatever reason behind some piece of cowling there's a bunch of chewed wires and they're gonna have to chase those down too. A lot.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think you've hit the nail on the head, Andrew. A lot of the shops are reporting that people are saying, you know, I don't need the car because I'm not driving right now, but I want you to get it all done. Like they're leaving it for 2-3 days and getting way more work done than usual, which is very productive and efficient for a shop, right?
Yes.
You don't have to charge it any more than usual. You just charge normally, but because you don't only have to bring that car in once instead of multiple times, it's much more effective, right? And I think what's happening is the driving public realizes that even though they're not driving much now, when they do drive, they want that thing to work, right? They want that thing to work, even for the most limited trips that they're taking. So I think that's also a positive result for the aftermarket as well, right?
Yeah.
Consumer's point of view.
There's a lot of things working into favor. I mean, I think we still, as you say, have some, some uncertain peaks and valleys, hopefully subsiding over the next few weeks and months. We're going to have some still question marks moving forward, but you know, I for one, I've got to love the optimism that's already starting to reveal itself through the surveys when you know we're just coming out of it in a lot of places where I mean, you know, the local jurisdictions are just starting to open some things up, and already there's some optimism there that that things are going to start to look better.
Yes.
Good stuff. All right, Murray, thank you again.
My pleasure.
Time to share what you're learning out there in the field. I'm Andrew Ross from Indie Garage, and everybody, I hope you have a good, safe day, and we'll talk to you soon.